Let's go.
Kia ora everyone, my name is Lochana and welcome to the first episode of 808 101. The aim of this show is to dissect music production and songwriting, and this is the first episode and I'm really happy to be doing this. I'm really excited. We've got myself, we've got Canaan on the track. Say hey, Canaan.
Yo, yo.
Yo. And in the studio with me today, I've got my good friend AJ.
What's up? What are you going to call me?
I was going to call you Arjun, but...
oh, no.
No.
Bad start. No.
We got the AJ Sound on Instagram at AJ Sound in the studio with us. I met AJ thanks to a mutual friend. Thank you, Sujith. 6 months ago?
Yeah, probably around May-ish, eh?
Yeah.
May, June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And literally on the first day that we met, we recorded something and we released it a few weeks later. And ever since then, we've been collaborating. And you're in a very exciting place in your life. But so tell the audience who you are. Introduce yourself. How would you introduce yourself?
I thought you were going to do it for me. No. So I'm AJ, and basically what's happened is that I am an IT boy that was born in India, came to Auckland when I was 9 years old, but over time just picked up this amazing interest for music, met some great people over the last decade or so. Kind of started in 2012, and my dad's tried to get me to play the guitar like throughout my childhood, but basically couldn't do it. I can, but nothing more than that. Yeah. But then in 2012 I actually strung more than one chord together, and then I played my first song, which was actually Pumped Up Kicks for the families, and that was really interesting. But it kind of just grew from there. Did some covers with a few cool people. Shout out to Shirley as well. She's doing really well in Bollywood right now. Got a couple of movies coming out, and yeah, just a few other people, more in the Bollywood sort of era or Bollywood sort of thing, because I couldn't sing at the time. And my glasses are fogging up, so I'm just going to take them off. Yeah. But I couldn't sing at the time. So basically, I used to play guitar for people. Created a YouTube channel called the AJ Sound, which basically came from watching Ed Sheeran videos on the Warner Sound. And I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to be. I don't know whether I'm going to be a producer or a studio or a what. So at the time, I was just a confused little boy that made the AJ Sound. And I guess the name kind of stuck because it was just like super catchy and easy. And yeah, it's just like the AJ Sound. And a lot of people just call me the AJ Sound now. But really, the artist's name is AJ. And that whole artist dream kind of started a couple of years ago when I had a really good relationship with a lovely girl that I'm still dearly in love with. But it didn't go to plan, according to me. And basically, I was in India with some friends, and yeah, this just happened. Like I was at a bar, started playing the guitar, and all of a sudden there were all these people around us, and my friends are like, "You got to do this." So this was only last year, so kind of it's all just kicked off from there.
So it's sort of like gone up exponentially because you've been doing covers and music for a while, but over the last year you've just kind of ramped up your goals, and obviously a lot of songwriting has a bit of heartbreak but behind it, and I know that when we met we were both going through some stuff.
That was great. That was great. This is what we're doing together.
That's what we're doing
off
together.
Screen too.
Yeah.
Except I don't sweat so much because this is really hot. Like it's actually really hot in here.
It was hotter before when we had other lights.
When we had other people.
But no, we're brown boys. We sweat. That's what we do.
Oh God.
Oh gosh. So you're, would you say you're more of a songwriter or you're more of a producer?
I'm more of a singer-songwriter. Like, I kind of want to be on the forefront, and I think a lot of that stems from I grew up with very low self-esteem just because I was a big, fat, chubby kid in school. I had a great set of friends around me, but I wasn't by any means popular and stuff. So I think I crave attention on a very deeper level, and I crave approval from other people and strangers, which just makes it perfect for me. I kind of love being the center of attention, so as you can kind of see by the glasses. But yeah, I think that draws me more towards being at the forefront, and I see myself as an Ed Sheeran or a Post Malone or someone that's right out there, or Taylor Swift, like a male Taylor Swift, kind of someone that's right out there in the forefront, in your face, big brand, billboards everywhere. That's the dream. That's the dream.
Boom. And that's basically, the character that I know you as. You're always at the front. You're always, making up lyrics at parties, writing songs on the fly. It's great fun. And what I love about working with you is that you've got this drive that when we get into the room, it's not just about let's just have a casual jam. It's like, no, let's make something. And that's really great because, I love making stuff.
Thanks, dude.
And so you've got this brain for being able to figure out stuff. You've figured out video editing. You've gotten this down, and you've gone into the world of songwriting. And you grow quite rapidly, and I guess you've got in the past 6 months I've seen you grow like crazy. You've gone from making okay beats,
sad man. The harsh truth comes out now.
I mean that with love, but then now you're producing some amazing stuff, and so the whole purpose of the show is to really get into the nerdy details of production. I was thinking, we could cover songwriting as well, but maybe we'll save that for another time. But let us know in the comments if you'd like to go, if you'd like us to go into the songwriting aspect as well. But so you've got a song coming out. It's called
quite a few actually.
Quite a few.
Yes. It's interesting. It's all kind of come together thanks to another shout out to my manager Taranum. She's amazing. Kind of been a really good friend of mine for a long time. I think 2011, 2012. So way before. So I was a DJ before. I didn't mention that, but kind of when in my DJing days, I used to send her beats and stuff or like mixes and stuff on SoundCloud, and just met her through a call center I used to work at, because I feel like that's a pass for all Indians. Like everyone has to go through the call centers. But essentially met her there, and we've just been friends since. And she's in media, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, I need a manager, or I need someone to look after my social media and media stuff, and she's kind of just been super helpful and just in there doing it all for me. And just this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for her. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I would have just been sitting on these songs for a long time, but she's kind of just pushed me to get it out there. Yeah.
So, I guess that's an important thing that I guess indie artists don't think about is having someone else drive the clock of progress. Otherwise, you just sit on your ass sometimes and do nothing, right?
Yeah.
When there's all this talent that could be moving faster and being released faster.
Yeah, and I don't think it's talent as such. It's like every musician I've met kind of has a very big drive. They all have different goals and end goals or destinations, but they all have a really strong drive. But we tend to be very not organized people. And I can't speak for everyone but I'm definitely not organized at all, and that's something that she can really nail down and help with, and she's been doing that, and so it's been really good partnership. Like, I think look for people that you'd really trust. Don't look for an expert, or don't look for something like that. Like, for me, it's just someone that I really trust that will find the answer if I ask them a question, kind of thing,
Right. So trust when it comes to the people you work with in music is very important.
Absolutely.
In all aspects.
Because I think everyone's just making this up as they go. There is no expert in this field. Like, things are changing so quickly that everyone's kind of just figuring it out day to day. And same with managers. Like, the only thing a really experienced manager brings is probably the contacts and the fact that they've been able to do something with an artist before, but like the experience. But at the end of the day, if you really trust someone and they have the drive and they complement your skill sets, I think that's really important. So if I got a really unorganized manager, now that wouldn't be really helpful because I'm also very disorganized and stuff. So it's kind of like, oh shit. But get someone that complements your skill sets. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Nice. Well, speaking of organized and the pace of music, there's a lot of bedroom producers now because technology is accessible. You're able to produce this literally in your bedroom.
Yep.
So let's talk about that and what you actually ended up doing. So this is a new track. I've heard it a few times. Shall we listen to a little teaser of it, and then you can talk us through the progression of how you went from idea to this.
Yep. So this track is called Anymore. It comes out in February. I don't think I'm allowed to say the actual release date yet, unfortunately. Okay. But it comes out in February, towards the end of Feb, which is less than a month. And
this month.
And the weird thing about this is we actually, Lochana and I kind of songwrite a lot together, and we will have some stuff coming out later in the year as well together. Teaser. But anyway, basically what happened with this one is Jordan, another co-producer, huge shout out to him, because he's really pushed me so hard in the last month that I've dramatically improved in the last month, and I think Lochana can attest to that. But basically Jordan, Lochana and I wrote a song, and then 2 weeks later, after I submitted that song, this song happened kind of just over the weekend, just randomly, and I've kind of decided to just go with this one. It just seems like the right thing to do. Not because I don't like the other song. It's just that I think it's good to come out with something like this up front. I think it's just the right choice. It's just a gut feeling. And that's the thing. I think trust your instincts and trust your gut. 100%. That's the main thing. Yeah. So
I remember hearing this on Instagram stories. He had sent a blast out to his close friends with a little snippet, just him playing it on his guitar.
Yep.
So let's hear it, man. Let's hear just the last little snippet, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. So this is the little chorus at the end. I'm a huge fan of having a very numbed down acousticy or low chorus before the big climax. So this is the last little chorus. The song's called Anymore. So here we go. Out of my head, I know you don't want to leave me alone. You know I can get you out of my head, but I don't want to love you anymore. You know I can get you out of my head. I know you don't want to leave me alone. You know I can get you out of my head, but I don't want to love you anymore. Yeah. Out of my head. Yeah, so that was it there. Boom.
Listen to that. That's hot.
Thanks, man.
That is hot. Canaan, that's your first time hearing it. What are your thoughts?
Bro, that's super awesome, bro. How long did it take you to produce the whole track?
To be honest, I kind of wrote it when I was in Melbourne I went to Melbourne, 3 weeks ago? It was about 3 weeks ago. Wrote the hook in Melbourne, kind of just sitting with my mates. We'd had a big night. It was a rough weekend. But I kind of went there to just take a break, because the week before that was really intense with the other song that we had to kind of get done and submitted on time. So we submitted the song in the morning, had no sleep that night, went straight to Melbourne, and kind of was just sitting in the living room after one night. So this was on a Saturday morning, and this kind of just came out. And
play us what I heard on Instagram. Grab the guitar and show me exactly what, because this was cool. I heard this on Instagram and I was like, oh damn, that's pleasant.
So basically this is how it started. I had this, I really like real simple catchy songs, and I think that's one thing that I want to do. I want to make sure the music is real simple and real easy for every type of listener. Not so much I'm pretty sure musicians won't end up respecting me because this is just real simple stuff, but it's just a simple. This was the first thing that came to me.
Nice.
And as you can see, it's all seventh chords, which just kind of makes it feel a bit more deeper than it actually is. And then I just started jamming to it, and the way I kind of write melodies, and I've learned this from Lochana actually, is just you just start humming stuff until something works, and I just kind of started humming, just random stuff, right? And then all of a sudden I had, you know I can't get you out of my head, I know you don't want to leave me alone, you know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't want to love you anymore, you know I can't get you out of my head, I know you don't want to leave me alone, you know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't want to love you anymore, yeah.
Man, that is gorgeous. That is a gorgeous chord progression, gorgeous melody.
Thank you so much.
Because what is it, like a 2-5-1 kind of variation?
I'm actually not theoretical, so I have no clue.
2-5-1-6.
There you go. 2-5-1-6. I'll remember that. next time someone ever asks me like what chord progression did I use, I have no idea. It's like I just listen and I play. And but yeah, to answer your question, I think like to go from that, this song was really quick. Like normally songs take me at least a week before I have like a basic kind of from the acoustic version to the beat, and then I've laid down lyrics or a melody that I'm happy with and all that stuff. This one, it kind of just came to me, and when I came back from Melbourne, I didn't record it for a whole week because I just wanted that week off because we had just finished that other song. And basically I took the week off, but all these ideas were coming to me during the week. But then I had a party to go to on Friday night. And then came home from that party. I was driving home at about 7 a.m, and that's when it like the rest of the song just came together, like on the drive home, basically. So bad thing to do, but I kind of wrote the song on the drive home, and and I love notes and like voice recordings that are the best thing. Like it's just always use it, always record whatever you're kind of doing. I think Gary Vee is like a big fan of like just making sure everything's documented, and I think that's really important for a songwriter because you never know, like in 6 months you might be in a studio with someone and this beat really hits you, but you've already got material to kind of put against it, so it just builds up this like huge like catalog of stuff that you have. And then on Saturday morning this was 8 a.m, I'm like, I need to get some sleep. But then I'm like, no, this idea is great. Let me just record it. So I put that riff on the guitar kind of in Ableton, and you'll hear it. And then
play it for us.
I will play it for you, actually.
Yeah.
So the thing about this is I'll strip away all the effects because it's going to sound horrible with all the effects. I've done a lot to this guitar.
So what is this software that you're using?
I use Ableton Live, and to be honest, I kind of just fell into this one. I kind of just fell into it because I bought this MIDI keyboard when probably around the same time I met you, because I said I want to take my songs. I used to just do acoustic covers with like a guitar, maybe a piano and my vocals. And then I said I want to take this to the next level, and the only way to do that is to now start using beats and samples and all this other stuff. So I bought this MIDI keyboard and it came with Ableton, but the Ableton it came with could only do 6 tracks. And I'm like, there's at least like 70 tracks in this, and I know like you got to keep things simple, but like you do need a lot of tracks. Like 6 tracks is definitely not enough to do like a full scale kind of, it could be like and you can work around it by just bouncing tracks and like constantly like you know but at the end of the day I just want a simple workflow, and this works for me. So I bought the full version, which was about $500 I think, but best decision I ever made, because it's not the same as like most of your stuff like Logic and all the other things, and at the end of the day they all achieve the same thing. But what you'll notice is I've just learned to use this interface. Like it's a different interface, but I've learned to use it and it just works.
Right. Yeah, because a good piece of advice a friend gave me was it doesn't really matter about the tool, just learn your tool, right? Like learn it inside out and learn to make it work for you.
Yeah.
I started with Fruity Loops 3 when I was young, and I milked it for all it's worth, and I produced tracks. And so
I've heard your stuff on GarageBand, like it's genuinely freaking awesome. You need to release some of that stuff.
Definitely. So because my producer knowledge is limited at the moment, I just use iPhone GarageBand for just demoing shit, really.
And it's good. Your demos are awesome. But yeah, like to go back to your question, basically like this took, I think on Saturday morning I started putting the stuff in. Then I had a beat laid down, and it took me about 6 hours on Saturday, and then on Saturday night when I came to see you guys, I kind of had it ready. Almost to the level that it is now. So it was great. Like,
so let's hear really the like what did you start with?
So this is what I started with. I'm going to strip away the plugins, and like the point I want to make here is if you look at all these plugins on screen, they're basically all Ableton plugins on this track, like on the guitar. Like I haven't actually, you don't need to buy anything else. Like I'll stress that point. You can use stock plugins for everything that you need. I actually have never heard the guitars with these off, so this will be interesting for me too.
Right.
And I might have to play around with the levels, so. So it's just what I played before, essentially.
Yeah. So there's a bit of level changes going on. Is that the sidechain kicking in?
No, so it's not the sidechain. What I've actually done is I've chopped up the track. Like if I zoom right in, because the thing is the guitar it's not perfect. Like when you play it, stop that for now. But like when you play it, it's not always perfect, so it's not perfectly on beat, and sometimes that gives a nice humanistic feel. Like you need some of that in your tracks, and I think one of the guys that I look up to, Charlie Puth, kind of does that, and he says there's always like there's always something like that going in the background for him,
right?
No matter how soft. You may not hear it as a listener, but he's always like, it kind of just brings some movement to it.
Do you mean like a human element?
Like a human element. It's like a band playing, right? There's a difference between a band playing and then you've just kind of done everything on a MIDI keyboard. There's a big difference because the band, you kind of feel that whatever the guy's feeling who's playing the piano, you're going to get that vibe. Like if he hits the keys real hard, you're going to get that. Whereas if you program it, or even if you're playing it on a MIDI keyboard, you're not going to get that same level of humanism as you would on a live performance. So what I've kind of, unfortunately, these guitars with the beat, like it was great when it was acoustic, but when the beat kicked in, I had to kind of quantize it, which means I had to kind of bring it in to the right, like I had to get it on beat as close as possible. And I have a few tricks, like I kind of lag some stuff and I kind of pull some stuff forward just to give it a bit of a swing or a bit of a feel. And that's what I've kind of done, and that's why you're hearing like these quiet periods, because I've literally, like if I zoom right in, I've literally chopped things up and kind of like made sure I've got it, see like that delay between that slap and that slap. It just gives a nice like space and feel, which you just notice. You don't actually hear it, but you notice it like in your body and your movements.
You feel it. So these are little details that no one will consciously know, but they'll feel. So I've heard that term swing before, right? And that's that human rhythm. It's not exactly on the digital like hard coded beat. So it's slightly lagged.
And I think like the best way, like I'm no good at terminology, so if you guys are watching this and you're a better producer than I am, which is probably like 80% of you, make sure you drop it in the comments and correct me. Like basically I think swing is like delaying things a little bit, because there's the rush side of it where you want to like pull things forward to get the beat kind of getting you kicking, and then there's swing, which is you kind of delay it, and you hear it in like songs like White Iverson where the snare is actually not on time. It's actually just like it's kind of like lagging, and it gives you that like neck snappy feel because it's just like kind of pulling you back. That's the easiest way to explain it. But I think at the end of the day, forget theory, just listen to it and figure out what works for your track. Like that's the main.
Totally.
Listen to it. Like don't just be like, oh, I have to have it on beat, or I have to swing it because that's the by a quarter note or whatever, because that's the way it's done. Like just feel it. Feel it.
Canaan, do you have a question there?
I was gonna say, so you kind of dequantize your guitars and your rhythms and stuff. Do you also do the same with your drums? Like a lot of like swing and funky drums are kind of like laid back. Like you'd have a delayed snare or you'd have a delayed hi hat. Do you do that with your drum beats in this song as well? Or?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think one classic example, we'll get to it over time, but if you look in my drum section, there's actually a tambourine. And
oh, really?
There's a tambourine.
There's a tambourine in
There's a tambourine. And the cool thing about so this is the tambourine by itself. Wait, let me just unsolo the other stuff. Oh yeah, so this is the tambourine by itself. It goes left to right.
It does.
Oh. Left, right, left, right.
Yeah.
And the thing about this is it comes in a few seconds after the snare. So if I play one of the snares, there's a lot of snares in here because I like to layer snares to create like this unique sound.
Like a fat snare, right?
Yeah. And it's like a different texture to the snare if you have like a clap on it with a snare and stuff. But here's the snare and the tambourine kicks in a bit after, so you might hear it. I'll pull the level. Oh, actually.
This is great. Now we've gone from guitars and the rhythm of the guitars to now kind of like talking about the drums.
Yeah. So I'll pull the level up. I'll pull the level up so you can hear it. But
okay, yeah, I can hear that. Yeah.
So it's very minorly delayed. Very minorly delayed behind the snare. For this track, I had the snares on beat though. Like I sometimes I have the snare kind of just lagging a little bit as well. But or you can have layers of the snare lagging, so it just feels like it's kind of like this space
sizzles out.
But for this particular track, I had the snares on beat. I feel like this is one of those tracks that just needs that beat to be very consistent, very similar throughout. So it's just a personal opinion. Like someone else might disagree, and that's fine. Like music's and art is about expressing your opinions. So it's super cool.
Mean. So let's so you got the guitars. Talk me through the fundamental layers of the song. What is it made up of? Because on the surface, it has a kind of a simplistic sound, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But I imagine there's a lot more going on. But for now, let's just talk about what are the fundamental sections of this. You've got your drums, your guitars, your bass, and your vocals, right?
Yeah, and I think like this is one thing so for the last 6 months or maybe 4 or 5 months since I met Lochana, like obviously the production has gone up in quality because I've figured out how to make a beat versus just having an acoustic sound. But since then, I've always wondered, like, what is the thing that I'm missing? The one little thing that I'm missing to get me up to radio quality.
Because that's your intention, right? Like, you're making this music to be listenable on radio, mass market.
Mass market. Like, think Ed Sheeran, think Post Malone, think all the, like, Taylor Swift, like I said. My 3 biggest, probably, influences. Then there's people like Sam Smith who've kind of brought me here. Well, not literally, but like,
yeah,
I
you
wish,
just dropped them
it's
off.
like, I wish, Sam just, hey Sam.
Just there in the back. Yeah.
No, but Sam Smith had a big part to play because I did a few of his songs as covers, and then I think like back in the day, like I've grown up with rock sounds like Metallica and can you call Metallica rock, or is it more like
metal?
Hard? Yeah. Guns N' Roses, like Foo Fighters, like I've just grown up on that stuff that everyone kind of grows up on. But I think like there's a different element that plays the biggest part in every song, and that's very genre dependent. And I think pop music and hip hop especially, the biggest elements there are the drums, the bass, and the vocals. And to be honest, you can have a track with just those 3 elements. Like you literally don't need a melody if the bass can carry it with your vocals. That's just what I think.
When you mean melody, do you mean like the chord component of it?
The chord component and the way the melody is kind of, so the way the song kind of goes, like the top line.
Yeah. So
like your chorus, for example, is like na 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 na, like that would be the melody, for example. And I think a good melody with an underlying and Post Malone does this a lot. He has his vocals doing like chords underneath that melody. I think that can carry a song, and so I kind of followed that formula, and the bass plays the biggest part here. The guitar adds a bit of rhythm, so that really helps to get some movement in there. But at the end of the day,
what would you say would be a reference track for this that you used?
I think I used Better Now a lot for the vocals because it makes sense. The chord progression is quite similar. I think it's the same, like what did you call it? Like 1641 or whatever. I don't know what you said.
2516.
2516.
Yeah. So for those who are listening, 251 is like a very kind of standard jazz chord progression, and a lot of jazz songs have a variation of 251.
Yeah.
So and even in pop, like Isn't She Lovely is a variation of 251. Yep. Sunday Morning. Yep. What else? Heaps.
Like in pop, like I think Roxanne is another one that's like very similar as well. Like,
that's 251 as well.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So there's a lot of it's just got this catchy element to it, I think, and it's just real relatable.
You're right when you said it adds this depth when there where there may not be any. Not saying you're.
I mean, the seventh chords. The seventh chords definitely adds depth, right? It's kind of like it's adding complexity to something that's really simple, but it's not complexity in a bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a very interesting topic, which I'm sure we can have another complete deep dive into.
Because I think you and I have differing opinions on complexity. I think that's the one thing that we're always on the same page, but like when it comes to complexity, I think you can comprehend complexity a lot better than I can, because I get lost in it. And I just can't, I'm like, oh man, this song's too hard.
The context of that is our opinions of John Mayer, because I grew up listening to 90s pop and John Mayer, and John Mayer's a little bit more on the complex side of pop. It's still pop, but then what AJ's talking about is more on the Post Malone stuff. And I'm not saying simpler is worse, but it's just, I guess, different levels of complexity.
Yeah, and I think like I have huge respect for the musician and songwriter that John Mayer is, but I find it so hard to kind of, because I'm not a great, like I think Lochana is a very talented musician. I think I'm just figuring this out, and so I'm kind of like, yo, this is too hard for me. I can't play a John Mayer song. I could never play it on a guitar. It would take me like a year to learn a John Mayer song. So that's kind of where I go. I want to be able to listen to a song and just go, yo, I just want to sing this. And I think that's the formula that like Post Malone sticks to and Ed Sheeran sticks to, which is just an average person on the street should be able to just hear it and just repeat it.
Yeah. So let's talk about so given that was your motivation, how did you approach your production here?
So the one thing Jordan taught me is I was focusing way too much on everything else and not the main thing.
Yeah.
So I used to focus on like effects a lot, and I used to focus on ambience a lot, and I used to focus on pads a lot. But what he really said is you need to get that bass roaring, you need to get those drums nice and loud and thick and punching through, And you need the main thing. I think the one thing that really pushed me is the vocals, because I never paid enough attention to the vocals, and I'm really keen for you guys to hear the vocals, because so this is with all the effects on, and I'll share some tricks, because I learned some tricks by listening to. I legit sat down with Jordan and listened to Post Malone's Better Now a cappella like all night. Wow. On repeat, just to see what they were doing with the vocals, and it's super interesting.
Can definitely hear like the reverb is kind of like modeled off that song. You got that like airy fairy kind of light breathy sound. Yeah, it's got that. It's got the backing vocals. It's got the emphasis on the ends of the words and everything. But I'll show you guys. I'll show you guys.
Here's it.
So here's the vocals of the final chorus, the low chorus, and then going into the big climax. Out of my head, I know you didn't want to leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't want to love you anymore. You know I can't get you out of my head. I know you didn't want to leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't want to love you anymore. And I'll take the loop off, and you'll hear this.
Nice.
So no one can hear that, but that's playing almost throughout the track, that little ayo, ayo, oh, ayo.
That's amazing. You've got quite a lot going on in there.
There's a lot happening, but I think at the end of the day, as long as the main vocal is still sticking out and like in your face, it's fine. And
yeah, quite a lot going on, but it doesn't feel like it when you listen to the final result. Yeah. So talk to me about your approach there, and like, you know, why are you approaching it with so many layers of vocals?
So I think the big mistake, like the biggest thing that I learned from Jordan is basically that when I recorded, so like when everyone records vocals at home, because your voice is a dynamic instrument, like when I'm saying I'm kind of going up and down in volume, right? And so your vocals will always come out kind of like this. They'll always come out like all over the place, right? And the biggest job really, and like you can see I haven't done the best job here. Hopefully this is not my main line, but you can see like the more time you spend on these vocals, and like in the industry there are people that just do vocals and send it back. Like that's how big this thing is, right? And I used to always wonder, like in a pop track, why does that vocal sound so nice and like thick and like it just sticks there? Like if you're hearing a pop track and you hear like the sounds coming out of different places in the speakers, that vocal never moves. Like it's always just constant. Like, do you guys feel that? It never moves. Like no matter whether they're shouting or screaming or like singing softly or low or high or like whatever.
It's that compression, eh?
Yeah, it's always like constant. And so one of the things is I never compressed my tracks enough. And but before it goes into compression, there's another trick that I kind of learned from Jordan, is that if you look at this, each word is actually just chopped up and volumized so that it's perfect. And that's something that I don't see anyone need to, like, if you just needed to lower a P and stuff, some people just put a de-esser on it, like it's a plugin that will, you know, soften those pers and ters and all that shit.
Yeah.
But basically, like, you could also just volumize this or automate this to bring the volume of that P down. And as you can see, like the volumes of that is like -5 decibels on the track, and here it's like 0 decibels. So there's a lot of like preparation you can do.
So before
pre-preparing, there's a lot of preparation you can do.
Pre-preparation and volumizing.
There's a lot of pre-preparing you can do.
These are all words made up by AJ. They're not actually industry words, I'm sure.
God. None of this is industry stuff. Like, I'm sure I'm talking a lot of shit, because the right way to do this would actually be to automate the track, and I don't do that. I like to actually chop up my tracks and volumize. So
you actually go into the waveform and edit each like syllable,
each word that sticks out like to its limits. Like you could spend days on doing this, right, if you wanted, but
yeah, true.
But like it's that level, it's the level that you want to achieve, and the more time you spend on it, and not necessarily the more time, but the more quality time you spend on this, the better it'll go. This happens before any of like your processes are hit. So before you hit an equalizer, before you hit a compressor, before you hit anything, kind of spend that time to prepare the vocals well.
Right, that's interesting. I've never really heard of anyone doing it to that granular level. Is that something you've kind of been exposed to, Canaan, like in your kind of education?
Definitely for like radio standard songs, a lot of producers would do something like that. Yeah. So it's good to see that you're building up that practice like before you even hit the radio waves, man.
Yeah, man. Like I think that this is the one thing that has taken my songs and from like the cover level to this like radio level is literally just spending more time on the vocals.
So that's awesome. So talk to us about what the next step is. So you've chopped up your vocals, and do you do that for every layer as well? Like
I do that for most layers. Obviously, like there's a lot of layers happening. Like I'll play some of the other layers here.
Yeah,
as
can
well.
you like build us like a stack, like
Yeah,
starting
yeah.
from like
So this is the main line. Let me just go to the final chorus. So this is the main line. So this is what you hit, like what most people will hear.
You know I can't get you out of my head. I know you didn't want to leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head.
and just there's already like
You know I
two
can't
or
get
three
you
things going
out of
on.
my
So
What's
there's
happening?
a bit of harmony there. So if I
Yeah.
take that
Yeah,
out,
I can hear that. Yeah.
yeah, so there's a bit of harmony, and I use a thing called Nectar. So Nectar is a great plugin which kind of does pitch correction for you, which does delay and all this stuff. And it's very light. Like if you notice, the mix here is 11% of delay of this is that what I've actually applied. And then it does harmony. And what I've done here is actually like what might be a nice one to see is the first chorus as well, because that's kind of like a lot more rougher.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first chorus.
You know I can't get you out
No
of my
harmony here.
head. I know you didn't want to leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head.
Yeah.
So that's the original.
You know I can't.
But basically, like when I go to the final chorus, what I've done is I wanted it like a whole like group of people kind of shouting it.
Mm.
So what I've got here is I've placed like some unison. Unison is like when you're singing the same thing on the left and right
Oh,
side
wow,
to
it's
thicken
very
it.
visual.
Yeah, to thicken it a little bit. I've got thirds, which is harmony, which is the harmony that you hear, and then I've also got an octave lower playing as well at a very low volume. So that's like. So that's like, you know I can't get you out of my head. And also, you know I can't get you out of my head. So I've got that playing. But this is all computer generated stuff. I do more on top of that. Like I do actual harmony singing and stuff on top of that. But this is the original top line that everyone will hear, is that huge sound of like, that huge pop sound basically.
You know I can't get you out of my head.
Mm.
I know you didn't want to leave me
And
alone.
you
Yeah.
leave that for the last chorus, I'm guessing, that kind of
Yeah,
big-
so this is the build up to the last chorus. So it's that final chorus that is very acousticy and low,
yeah.
but it's also the very, very end chorus
Okay.
as well.
So then what else have you got going on underneath?
So then underneath, but I don't want to love you anymore. So I kind of wanted to keep that very, and I got this idea from Charlie Puth on Easier.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easier to stay? Is it? Yeah, so that one.
Yeah.
So I kind of got that idea and I was like, let me crush this. And in fact, I probably in the final version didn't end up crushing it. I wanted to crush it. When I say crush it, it's like lowering it from a very high quality sound to a low quality sound is
So
what I'm
bit
talking about.
crushing, right?
Yeah.
So is that what the distortion is there, or
No. So what I've used a lot across the whole track is actually a tube amp distortion.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's what I've chosen. I tried tape, but I found it like this. So when I'm talking about distortion and saturation, all it's doing is it's taking a normal sound, like a flat, because digitally recorded sounds are like flat, like it's a single line, right? For example. And what it's doing is it's adding harmonics to that. So it's making it thicker and it's making you hear sounds that you wouldn't normally hear,
Right.
essentially, to the normal listener.
Is that the same as crushing it or no?
No, so crushing it is taking like a high quality sound. Like what you're hearing now is probably like 24-bit or
Oh,
something.
yeah,
It's
making
like
it
a
a
high
bit
quality
more-
sound. It's making it more robotic and like not as high quality, essentially.
Making it a bit more lo-fi.
Yeah, lo-fi.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So you got a layer of that happening.
I don't have a layer of that happening. But I don't want to love you anymore. I was debating whether to crush it or not.
Yeah.
I don't think, yeah, so
Crush it.
I didn't end up crushing it.
Yeah.
But what I did end up doing is so one thing I do use a lot is auto-tune for a creative effect.
Mm-hmm.
So what you'll hear on this is you'll hear, so like that. I'll solo them both. Oh. I'll solo them both. I've done that a few times actually. I'll solo them both together. So
Out of my head.
this is barely
I know you
auto-tuned.
didn't want to leave me alone.
And then you hear,
You know I can't get you out of my head. But I don't want to love you anymore. You know.
so that, but I don't want to love you anymore is differently processed. It's very auto-tuned heavily, like very robotic. The formant is shifted, which means it's the same key. So I'm singing the same notes,
Mm-hmm.
but it sounds different. It sounds lower. And
Formant. What does that actually mean?
So it's sort of like the depth of the, or it could be the depth or the heights of the pitch, right?
yeah, so I'll show you this, right? So like, for example, this is playing it as it is on the track.
But I don't want to love you anymore.
And you can see really heavy pitch correction, like
Mhm.
100% zero speed. So it's almost like that full-on T-Pain effect.
Yeah.
But I could have gone even more because, like, I'll show you. So
But I don't want to love you anymore.
that's the normal sound. And now I'll put this up.
But I don't want to love you anymore.
So you don't hear a big difference there. But if I shift the formant, so that's like the underlying note, like it's the same notes again, but it's a different texture. That's probably the best way to explain it.
Okay.
So here you go. So that can make. So that can make a drastic. Like it just gives it a totally different feel. And so what I've done there is I've shifted the formant a little bit for the actual song.
So what is the plug? So it's Nectar that you're also using for the formant stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a powerful plugin. It does quite a lot.
So Nectar, I'm gonna have to reload the set because I've kind of messed around with it too much. But while it's reloading, yeah. So Nectar is it's a vocal kind of plugin. It's an all-in-one vocal plugin, and it kind of does all your vocals for you.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to have Nectar. It just makes it all kind of in one rack.
Right.
Almost. Yep. It's almost like having a rack with all your plugins in there. But I do use other plugins, like as you can see there's AutoPan running on that, which I'll explain. That's like this trick I learned. It's like a Post Malone trick. So
Boom.
What was the sort of like deciding factor between Nectar and sort of the other vocal processing like Melodyne or Antares?
No, so like the thing is, Nectar does everything. It's not just auto-tune.
Yep.
And like auto-tune's a touchy subject because people always go, oh, you can't sing, you have auto-tune on and stuff. But the truth is that you still need to be able to hold a note to be able to auto-tune effectively.
Yeah.
And any commercial track you hear is auto-tuned to some degree. And like it's like this track. Like I've auto-tuned, everything's auto-tuned, but it's the degree of auto-tuning or pitch correction that differs. So sometimes I'll use a very creative auto-tune, which is very T-Pain and very Akon, and you'll hear that like super auto-tuney sound. And sometimes you'll hear like a very raw sound, and that's most commercial tracks these days, if not all of them. So
so true, man.
Yeah. But sorry, I've actually forgotten your question.
No. I think I kind of sort of let you go on a roll in terms of talking us through the different the different text layers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Vocals, right.
That's right. So Nectar. So we were talking about Nectar. So Nectar doesn't just do auto tune.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, if I want to tune my vocals like perfectly to how I want it, I will use a plugin like my Waves Tune.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So Waves Tune allows you to actually pitch, and I wish I could show you. I haven't actually used it on this track, but Waves Tune allows you to pitch correct every letter and every word and everything. Like,
and you haven't done it for this track?
I haven't done it for this track.
And
I literally, for this track, I use Nectar's pitch correction.
Right.
And that kind of just gives you the, it does it automatically. You just have to tell it the key or the notes you want to correct to, like the scale, and then it will kind of do it automatically. And you can see it in action here. Like if I go to this track and I open up Nectar, this is the pitch, and maybe I'll play it without pitch correction as well, just to show you.
Wake up, Mr. Days now. Nowadays I don't wake up.
Whoops! I played a section of the song I shouldn't have.
Leaks.
I'm in trouble.
That section, by the way, is amazing. You've got a really good pre-chorus, and I can't wait for people to hear it. It's such a good pre-chorus.
Thanks, man.
After the live stream, we'll play it for you, Canaan, so you can hear.
Yeah, it's sounding dope already, and I've only heard like 40 seconds of it.
Yeah, there you go.
So here's pitch correction working, and I'll turn it off, and I'll show you how bad I actually sound. But here it is. See how it's moving those notes? Which means I'm actually going off the note, but it's just moving it back on. But it's automatic, so I don't have to go in there and edit the waveform. Whereas with Waves Tune, you don't have to. It does it by default based on the scale. But then it's normally good to go and edit it. And I'd use a tool like that if I wanted very detailed pitch correction.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So Nectar, where can people find Nectar? Is that Nectar 3?
So the isotope Nectar?
It's isotope Nectar, yeah. So, but there's a lot of I could do this with stock plugins. I just chose not to because this is a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what I've been doing is I use an app called Splice a lot. Splice is really good.
Yeah,
Splice does a lot of sounds and samples, and they're all royalty free, and you can chuck it in your songs and stuff. They go right from like a single sound, like an 808, which I'll also get to at some point. But they also do like full on loops, which some of them are actually really good. That would be hit songs. I don't know how that works. Like I don't know whether you could just literally use a loop the way it is, but
Splice.
It's royalty free. So
yeah.
But Splice is now also doing plugins on like a monthly subscription. So I've just gone through Splice to get my Nectar, and it just adds to your subscription.
Right.
Yeah.
That is so cool how
Yeah.
accessible it is now. It's not like you spend a crap ton of money for a plugin you haven't probably used.
Yeah.
You can pay a monthly rental fee
Yep.
Yeah.
and try it out on Splice.
And it's also rent to own as well, so you can pay $10 a month until it's like all paid off.
Yes.
Then you have the plugin forever.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, or you can just buy it. Like
Yeah,
if
you
you
can
have
buy it
like
outright,
$50 left on it and you don't want to waste 5 months paying $10 each and you have the $50, you just
Yeah.
you're like, yo, I
Boom.
want to get it today and it's
Yeah.
mine today.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
yours.
Yeah, so convenient, man.
Yeah.
So talk us through the rest of the layers of the vocals right now, and then what we'll then go into is like, why.
So there's that. Then I always have an octave underneath.
You know I can't get you out of my head. I know you didn't wanna leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't wanna love you anymore.
So that just adds a lot of space and it adds depth to the vocals. So like
Mhm.
if I were to play you the vocals without that on, it would sound very different to if I were to play it with it on. So like, let me just do that real quick.
Yeah.
How are we going for time, by the way? Like,
We've been on for 45 minutes.
okay,
yeah,
sweet,
sweet as.
sweet. So we got about half left.
Yeah,
Sweet.
You know I can't get you out of my head.
So that's like really, it's nice,
yeah.
but it's still really, it's really high. It sits high in your head. But as soon as I turn this on, and I'll do it like while it's playing.
Yeah.
You know I can't get you out of my head. I know you didn't wanna leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't wanna love you anymore.
So the good thing is you can't see my screen, so you don't know when I'm turning it on and off. But you probably noticed through that
I
that
can
it
hear it.
suddenly got deeper, it suddenly got higher. It's just where it sits in your head,
Yeah.
and I think it just makes it sit in the right place to have that lower octave.
Yeah.
And a trick here is actually you can use a formant shifter. Like I use Echo, what's it called? Alter Boy a lot to shift formant, and
So Alter Boy is a plugin specifically for formant.
it does formant and it does like weird stuff like drive, like overdrive and stuff. I'll show you some Alter Boy later as well if we have time. But basically, shifting the formant will change where it sits in your head, like where you listen to it. So if your formant's really high, it's going to sit really high in your head. But as you shift the formant, it starts moving down. And I think that's it's all about feel. And for me to replicate a good pop song is like to get that vocal sitting right in your head, in your ear space.
Interesting how you described it in terms of
Yep.
like where in your head.
Yep.
So are you sort of going for the approach of filling it out completely so that the vocals are both up there and kind of
Yep. I like
Deep.
the vocals to sit in the middle.
the main vocals?
The whole
whole thing.
package. I like the whole package to sit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
With little elements of it sizzling up the top. So like in a lot of like Justin Bieber tracks, for example, you'll hear this like little airiness up the top.
Yeah.
That's usually he's either duplicated his main vocal track and just like EQ'd out all the lows so that it just gets the air,
Right.
or he's like boosted the highs, or he's saturated the highs or something like that. So
Mm.
that gives it that like airiness on top.
Right.
So sometimes you can keep that. The lows are good. Like having an octave below automatically gives you the lows,
Mm-hmm.
but you can instigate the lows in other ways. Like you can shift the formant, you can duplicate the track and shift the formant down, or whatever you want to do to just get those lows to kind of hit.
Yeah.
But I like the main package to sit in the middle.
Right.
Yep. So that the snares are hitting up top, the drums are, and the bass is like kind of kicking low.
Yeah.
And I say in the head, but when you hear it on like in a club or something, you're gonna feel it. Like the lows you're gonna feel it. You're not gonna hear the bass. You're gonna feel it more in your like stomach and like your body, and you're probably gonna hear the roar of the bass more. So it's all about that feeling and just getting it to sit in the right place. I think anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Do you want to top up, by the way?
No, I'm yeah, actually. Thanks, Robert. What he means is, can I have a top up?
Can I have a top up,
Yeah.
please?
I love that hesitation there. Do you want to top up? Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, this is great. Yeah. But the other trick I want to share, and I
Mhm.
think this is like, I don't know if you've come across this, bro, but basically this auto pan trick. So I was listening to
Yeah, let's talk about
Malone's-
AutoPan.
Yeah, so like I was listening to Post Malone's vocals, and they're not. So everyone always says vocals should sit right in the middle. It should be like your mono track or even a
Yeah.
stereo track, but like right in the middle and all this stuff, right? I've noticed Post Malone like pans his vocals a lot, so it's like you probably think that you are better now. Like
Yeah.
it just goes left and
It's almost
right.
like stereo imaging.
Yeah, and it just goes left and right. And like this is a trick I've used a lot now on all my choruses. You probably won't hear this. It's not that audible, but for you guys on here, I will turn this amount up so it's very audible.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, like the vocals just bounce left and right, and it's really interesting. It's really interesting. You could do this manually by panning each section as you wanted and automating it, but I kind of use this auto panner and just set the rate.
Yeah.
So it's every quarter note, it's kind of just going left and right, and I'll show you the difference. So like, here's with it off, and it just adds this amazing dynamic and movement, I feel. So here's it with it off.
You know I can get you out of my head. I know you didn't want to leave me alone.
And then if I turn it on,
You know I can get you out of my head.
in fact, you probably didn't hear that because it's so
You know I
minor.
can get you out of my head.
But if I turn it
I
up,
know you didn't want to leave me alone. You know I can get you out of my head.
can you hear that?
It's subtle.
It's very subtle.
And it might be just the headphones.
It might be just the headphones,
you
but
know.
but like it's actually, it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. It makes the track so dynamic and movie.
Yeah.
Like this has become my favorite plugin. It's literally on almost every track in here.
So I'm kind of sensing a theme here around movement in terms of how you produce, right?
Yeah.
You keep things moving.
Yeah.
You keep things evolving. Vocals don't just stay the same.
No.
In terms of space, in terms of where it's in the head. Why is that?
It just gives it a good feeling. Like when I'm singing to you live, you're not going to hear a very straight, simple track, right? You're going to hear a dynamic movement as I move away from you, as I'm like maybe start stomping, I'm moving around, my vocals are moving, and it's all sound waves that you actually hear.
Yeah.
Like the ideal way to do this is to digitally try and replicate that.
Right.
Because when I'm speaking into this microphone, my recording is going to be very flat compared to, like if I was speaking to you in person and you're hearing it based on the reflections around you, and like there's probably waves bouncing off this table and hitting you at different angles and adding this depth. But if I'm just on a microphone and you hear this raw, you're just going to hear this like really flat line.
Yeah.
And that's why people add reverb and delays and all this stuff to add the space and like real life feel,
Yeah.
like you're in the room with them.
It's almost like in a radio song, because you don't have much dimension to play with in terms of volume, because that has to remain
Very static. Yeah.
static and normalized.
Yep.
You've got to find other dimensions to keep things interesting,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it's all about keeping that attention,
Yep.
right? It's just like
Yeah.
keep triggering that. Ooh, what's novelty in a way? In the same way that you do with video, right?
Absolutely.
Like with like freaking glitches and stuff.
Glitches and stuff, which
Yeah.
I love. Like I'm always over the top with everything, as you can see. Glasses, like
Yeah. So
yeah.
I guess it's finding creative ways to keep the mix dynamic in
Yes.
a world where it has to be this like
Static.
super
It has to be static.
compressed.
And I think that's a bit unfortunate that pop music has kind of gone super like it has to be this to fit into that pop and mainstream like mass market genre. But at the end of the day, that's what hits the most people, and that's fine.
We can't argue with what hits us biologically and
Exactly, right.
inherently, right?
It hits
So-
me too. Like I've only listened to hip hop and pop music for the last 6 or 7 months. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. So anything else you want to like kind of highlight about your vocals? 'Cause
Yeah,
I know
I
there's
think-
probably quite a lot of things you can go into.
There's a lot of detail here, but I
Mm.
think like Canaan, am I saying it right? Canaan?
Yeah, bro, that's me.
Awesome. So I think the best thing here is I've used an equalizer, and I've used just the one that comes with Ableton.
Yep.
And what that does is I've kind of taken out all those crappy sounds, and a good way to find those sounds is turn up that like
Turn up
don't-
the one frequency.
yeah,
and
turn
sweep.
up. Yeah, so
Oh,
it's
this is
called
cool. Yeah, definitely talk about this. So this is about creating frequency space now, right?
Yeah. So I always mix in mono, because mono is like everything's right down the middle. So the only way that you're gonna get space and like separation is with frequency separation. You can't pan something left so that there's space on the right. It's all down the middle. So you have to find the right frequencies. So the vocals, like I said, have to, and frequencies relate to where you're gonna hear it. So like when I said vocals need to sit in the middle, those frequencies kind of it's those frequencies that you're targeting.
Mhm.
And then your like snares need to sit up, so it's like the high frequencies, and your pads kind of sit wherever you want them depending on the kind of pads you use. And I'll show you the pads in this, and the bells is really interesting. But yeah, like the first thing is equalizing, and the way I find the bad frequencies, and I'll show you that real quick, is that I'll do that.
Cool. So this is your step after you manually chop up your vocals.
This is after, so this is a chain. So it starts with EQ, then I compress it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go into Nectar, or like for this track, that's what I've done. I've gone into Nectar, then I've compressed it again, and I'll tell you the secret about this one, because this is
damn.
another big secret that I had no idea people were doing this, because that's what makes it sit really nice and flat.
Yeah.
Then I go into another compressor, but it's a dirty compressor. Like it gives it like a bit more dirt and like grit, and then like this is another trick I use to add movement, is I actually sidechain the vocals on this one to kind of give it a bit of a bounce.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And I don't think that's normally done. I think that's something that's quite unique. So I'll show you guys all that
Cool.
really quickly.
Sweet. Let's start with the equalizer.
Yep. So equalizer, really simple. The way I find my frequencies is I'll loop the section, and I'll normally just pick like the biggest section with the most busiest or the most vocals or most whatever.
Yep.
And I will basically solo it. And people say soloing is not a good thing, but it's right because you need to hear the vocals in the mix as well at the end. But I think I'm okay with soloing it. And to be honest, it's the end result that matters. Like, who cares how you get there, right? Just figure it out.
When you say soloing, you mean like getting rid of everything and just working
playing
on the vocals,
just the track, yeah.
as opposed to making sure you're hearing everything at the same time.
In context, yeah. And that's
Right.
like a huge... It's probably like a lot of producers are probably going to write me off for saying that, but...
Canaan, are you writing him off right now?
Well, I kind of do the same, so I go between soloing and then playing the whole mix together.
Yeah, as long as you're hearing it again with the mix, right? Like, that's what I kind of say.
Okay, so Canaan's not writing off AJ, so that's
It's
good.
one person.
Oh.
Okay, so here it is. And I'll find the frequencies by boosting it. See that, like, muffle?
Yeah.
So that's... I literally just do that. I'll go around. If I didn't like that sound, I'll pull that down. If I like that sound, I'll pull it up. So,
Ooh.
see, I don't like that, so I'll pull it down. And that's all it is. Like, it's literally equalized to your taste. Don't equalize to like some specification that says, oh, this frequency is bad, this frequency is good, vocals should be like this. Listen to it and equalize it to what you want your vocal to sound like. That's the biggest advice there.
A lot of rogue frequencies are generally just room tones anyway, so you'd get like the rumble from the ground or some kind of light that's making like a high pitched frequency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or a car going by if you haven't soundproofed your...
Yeah,
room.
and I think one thing that another producer who's like doing really well, he's got some amazing tracks out. His name's Symbol, and he kind of told me that like he cuts all his tracks at like around 15 to 16,000 hertz, like all his tracks.
Yep.
And that was like, what?
Just the vocals or everything?
Everything.
Really?
Especially vocals, but he said he cuts everything there, and I was like, I boost everything there, and he was like, no, just try cutting it. And it's nice because it rounds off the sound. It really does. It makes it like, it takes off those like insane highs and kind of just rounds it off. You probably won't hear it audibly, but so that's with it off.
I know you don't wanna leave me alone. You know I can get you
And that's with it
out of
on.
my head.
So you can't hear a big difference, but like overall in the mix, I feel like it just kind of tightens it up.
Right. And so I know I asked this already, but just to kind of clarify, is this something you also do to the whole master at the end, where you cut off those high frequencies?
Nah, so with the master, you would be very cautious with your EQ. Like, you wouldn't go so nuts. Like, you would always EQ it very mildly.
Yeah.
And not with such a high... Like, do you know what this is called, bro? This Q thing? Because it's the one that makes it, like, thinner or fatter.
Would it just be called like slope or something?
Yeah, like the slope. You don't want a very steep slope on your master. Like, you want it to be very subtle. Because the steeper the slopes, the more harsher the final product. Like, I think it just makes it like cutty and like different. Yeah. So on the master, if we do have time, I'll go into the master. But if I kind of keep it very simple. So
okay.
Do you master your own track, bro? Or?
I did, bro. I did.
Nice.
For this one, I've kind of done it all myself with the help of Jordan, of course, who's actually, Jordan's contribution to this track was interesting. It's probably a good thing to talk about.
Oh, right. True. Let's touch on at the end. Let's keep going with the vocal chain, but definitely I know what you're talking about. I definitely know what you're talking about.
So yeah, other than so I've got the top layer, I've got the super auto-tuned but I don't want to love you anymore. I've got the lower octave running, and then I've got these little things. So again, it's a trick I picked up from probably Post Malone more than anyone. Is that he kind of has these like emphasis, and he does it more than me. Like, I've used it very subtly, but he's got a lot of emphasis on the final word. So like, you know, I can get you out of my head. Like, the off my head would be really accentuated.
Yeah.
And he uses like even harmonies and like other things to like make it, like other effects to make it sound really interesting. But like what I've done is I've kind of just reverbed it and made it a bit more different, like just EQ'd it and reverbed it differently. So this is what, these are the little things in the background.
So you got that kind of trail going on right there.
Yeah, so it's just a bit of reverb and EQing just to give it a bit more depth on those certain words to accentuate it very slightly. Like it doesn't do that much, but yeah.
Where do they sit in the mix in terms of pan and in terms of frequency?
I pan all of these, like I hard pan all of these. So these are individually panned.
Yeah.
So if I go to like the individual thing and I go like mixer, actually these ones aren't. I think, oh yeah.
When you say individual pan, you mean like in the waveform itself?
In the waveform. But
Right.
no, these ones are actually track panned. So this one, like this whole track is running 42% on the right. So
right.
50% is the max in Ableton. Like in other DAWs, I think it would be like 100.
Mm-hmm.
But it just means like 42% is almost like 88% or something. Like just
Right.
consider it as like a lot on the right.
Okay.
And the other thing is like 44% left. So it's panned, but it just gives it like this like just little out of my head, leave me alone. Like just just accentuates that a little bit. Very slightly. Like the volumes are really low, like -9 and negative 9.3 decibels. So yeah, it's just adding it a little bit of emphasis on some of those words.
And that all, again, once psychologically works to just make it stick,
It's
right?
psychological. You're
Yeah.
right. Absolutely right. You nailed it. Like it's all psychological. You might not hear a sound, but you feel it somewhere.
Yeah,
somehow.
you feel it. And then that's why it's just so easy to remember. Not only
Yeah.
is this melody just sticky on its own when you played it on the guitar, but
Yeah.
then now you just, pushing it to
You're
its...
adding these like little things that this is what a producer should be doing. Like he should be taking your raw sounds and kind of just accentuating it as much as he can without changing it.
Yeah.
Unless you want the producer to change it and put his own spin on it. But
Right.
yeah, that's another
The producer or the sound engineer? Or is it a mix of the two?
story. Look, I've not been like in a big production yet.
Yeah.
I've kind of done my own stuff. So I think the role of a producer is kind of to guide the direction and get the right, like make sure the resources and the logistics and all that stuff are sorted.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially the producer guides the direction, but the sound engineer's job is to get, like say there's a vocal sound engineer or a vocal producer. His job would be very specific to make sure the vocals are perfect.
Right.
And he'd be the one responsible for making sure like those things are accentuated and there's harmonies on it or whatever. Like that would be his role.
Yeah.
But the producer kind of overall will oversee it. Almost like a project manager, I would say.
Right.
Kind of oversees it, make sure everyone's happy, make sure that the track is going in the right direction, blah, blah, blah. That's just my take on it. Like I could be totally wrong. So if there is a comment section, just make sure you drop a comment and let these guys know if like I'm talking rubbish. Like it's probably a lot of shit. So
Yeah. All good. Great. So you've got
so there's that.
emphasis tracks going on.
There's
To
that.
emphasize the main words.
And then there's this real weird stuff. So there is this is the coolest thing. So there's this like
What the hell? I would
That's
never
super.
have heard, guessed that was even in there.
no, you have, because like if I play it for you.
I heard like a harmonic component, chords made out of vocals.
So this is it, right? So this is it without it. So here, like I'm not gonna solo it off because the first part of the chorus plays without it.
Yeah.
Out of my head, I know you don't wanna leave me
But when you hear it the chorus come around the second time, you'll suddenly hear it like pick up. That's what that is.
love you anymore. You know I can't get you out of my head. I know you don't wanna leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't wanna love you anymore.
So I did hear that,
Yeah.
but I just imagined it was this beautiful, choir kind of gospel thing.
No.
But when you hear it on its own, it sounds
No.
really robotic.
It was
and-
literally a robotic.
right.
So there's a lot of processing on this. Like there's a lot of compressors and stuff. There's a doubler, which is like a stereo imager.
Yep.
There's sausage fattener, which is like my favorite plugin ever. All I do is like tune up the fatness. Like just watch this, okay? Turn this up. You can totally muffle the sound like just by turning one knob, and you can make it like more airy and like bright, or you can make it dark. Like it's just real simple. It's a really simple plugin.
I've seen him use this a few times.
I use
It's
this on everything. Like,
two
it's
knobs and one image
one
of a
big
sausage.
fat sausage.
And so that's saturation. Is that
I
what?
don't. I actually have no idea what it's doing. Like, it just makes it sound better to me. To be honest, like I questioned it originally. I was like, is this just adding volume and it's making it like us perceive it as a better sound or a bigger sound because it's just adding volume? But I don't know. Like it's definitely distorting it or saturating it. I don't know. Canaan, can you like tell what this is?
Can you play it again?
So here's with it normally, and then I'll just turn it up.
It sounds like a combination of things. It's sort of like compressing it through like a tube compressor,
Yeah.
so it distorts the sound at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
Damn.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but you love it. You love
I love
this.
it.
Yeah.
I just feel like it just adds this depth to everything.
Damn. So okay, so we've heard the main vocal line, we've heard emphasis lines, we've heard a harmonic
low
component, low component.
You've heard the ooh, which is
Yeah.
a very Post Malone trick. Like he does this in every song,
Right.
and like yeah,
And
it
all the
just
while,
works.
it's also moving left and right with the auto panner. And
Yep.
then there's, you know,
So this ooh and stuff is like kind of just sitting down the middle, and I've also shifted the formant of it. Like, okay, let me turn all the processing off this, and you'll hear how bad it actually sounds. Should I turn auto tune off as well?
yeah, let's
Oh,
hear it in
Jesus.
its rawest form and
Let's
then
hear
build it
my
back up again.
horrible. Let's hear my horrible vocal. So this is
Nice.
what it sounds like without anything. Oh shit, that's the wrong track.
So that's with
Oh, there's still a bit of auto
There's
tune on it because
auto-tune
there's
on it.
another auto tune layer.
Yeah.
But so
that's
it.
cool. Yeah.
It's just real simple. And then I'll turn Nectar on. Nectar does a lot of the work. Then, so Altar Boy is the one that shifts the formant. So, and it actually, in this one, I've added Altar Boy to give it some harmony. So I used a preset called Rich Fifths, and then I just played with it.
Right.
So Altar Boy gives it drive, which is like a bit of saturation and like distortion.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the formant shifting, which we explained earlier, and then there's a pitch shift as well. And then there's a mix of the. Oh, actually, there's not much of the other one. Like it's 6%. So
Right.
yeah. But if I turn this up, which is kind of off key in a way. It's almost like a harmony, but it's kind of like one of these like I don't know. My friend explained it as like dissonance or something, but I don't know. I have no idea like musically. So there's Altar Boy doing that, and then there's Sausage Fattener fattening it up. So very minor, and it's also adding a bit of volume. So
Right.
a lot of that you hear is volume, and then there's EQ. Like I said, it's very like. Did you see how it shifted from like sitting there to like up here? So that's important. Then there's the big one, which is a doubler, which is a chorus effect. So what doubler does, and what I've used it for, is kind of I've left the middle line. Sometimes it's okay to take out the line in the center, but what it does is it'll double it. So it'll make a left copy and a right copy. It lowers the gain, so the volumes of the left and right are lower, and it delays the two. So it's kind of like the left and the right are slightly playing forward and like ahead and behind the actual track, and that just gives a depth. But
Right.
essentially, it's the same track, just copied to the left and right, and then processed.
These are essentially manual technique. Well, used to be manual techniques, right?
Manual techniques, yeah.
But plugins that kind of automate it for you.
Yeah, and I could easily do that by duplicating this track twice and then going one left, one right, and then taking the whole waveform, shifting it to the right a little. So
Yeah.
like you'll see the delay here is 9.4.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is it's just delayed a little bit. And then this one's delayed. The one on the left is delayed 23.7. I think it's milliseconds, but some kind of unit.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I'm no expert at this, and that just means I could duplicate the tracks, shift one a little bit to the right, and shift another one a little more to the right, and it'll add depth.
Gotcha.
That's essentially all it's doing, and then it's EQ to boost the highs.
Right.
And so with that you get a lot more depth.
Damn. Play us all the build us up back one by one, and make the last thing you add the main vocals. I just want to hear it.
Oh, one track at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be a bit tricky because there's like 10,000 vocal tracks.
All right. Don't worry about that.
But I will do it slow. Like I'll try and kind of just go. Okay, let's see. I've got a backing vocal bus here. Nah, it's too difficult.
All good.
But I can do it like one at a time like this. So
Maybe just play it everything except the main vocal line.
Oh yeah, everything except the main
Yeah,
vocal.
because I don't think we've heard it like that.
So this is everything except the main vocal. This is interesting. I've not heard it like this.
Love you anymore. You know I can't get you out of my head. I know you don't wanna leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't wanna love you anymore.
Oh, that was the main vocal. That was one. So
You know I can't get you out of my head. I know you don't wanna leave me alone. You know I can't get you out of my head, but I don't wanna love you anymore.
Damn.
that's what.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on, but again, it doesn't feel like it when you hear the final result.
No, because I think the main vocal is like dominant. It's super dominant,
Yeah.
and this or everything that you heard there is kind of just in the background.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I think we'll leave it there for vocals because
Yeah,
I think that was
That's
that was
quite a
a
dive. Oh, but one thing I do want to say though
Uh-huh.
is what changed my life
yeah.
was this thing called parallel compression. Like
Oh, okay. We do have to go into parallel compression.
So let me just keep it real simple for everyone. Basically, compression, what it does is, like, if your waveform is kind of like up and down and your volumes are differing, compression will push the peaks, like the highest point of the voice, down and make it lower. And compression also gives you the option to push the lows up, and that's called makeup gain. So the ones where it's shifting the peak down or like compressing the peak is called gain reduction,
Mm-hmm.
and where it's taking the lows and boosting them, it's called makeup gain.
Right.
And I might be totally wrong, but that's how I've seen it work.
Canaan confirms. It's
Canaan
correct.
confirms.
It's correct. Yeah.
Canaan confirms. Yeah, so basically that's what compression is. Now, normally, like a good ratio, so ratio is how aggressively you want to compress it. So if I have a ratio of 1:1, that's like no compression. If I have a ratio of 2:1, it's like doubling. It's basically compressing it a little bit. If I have a ratio of 4:1, it's compressing it more. So it's compressing it twice as much as I was before, or as twice as aggressively as I was before. So it's going to hit it harder. So normally, like a vocal is compressed at like a 4:1, 3:1 kind of ratio for the first time, and then they chain a number of compressors. So they'll have maybe a 3:1 going first, and then they'll have a 2:1 going after, and then maybe another 3:1 or something like that. And the reason for that is, like, the harder you hit the vocal with one compressor, the more color it'll add to the vocal, because every compressor comes with its own color and quirks and textures, right?
Yeah.
So to minimize the one color and to actually make it more unique, what they'll do is they'll have a chain of compressors adding their own kind of color and elements, each one adding its own element to the vocal to make it bigger and nicer, while at the same time making the volume more steady or more like consistent.
Yeah.
But the big trick here is at the end of that chain, you have something, and it's not just vocals. Like, they use this on everything. They use this on drums. They use this on instrumentals. They use this on everything in the track, or they might even use it on the whole track. Like, I've never experimented with that. And this is the thing that will give your pop vocal or your pop track that whole, when you hear a pop track, you're like, oh man, this is so consistent and nice. This is what will do it for you. It is actually called parallel compression. And what that means is you're sending that whole track to a compressor and you're squishing it like hell, like 15. I'm talking about like a 12:1 ratio. And remember we said
Wow.
like a 3:1 ratio is like what they use, 3:4 or something is what they use on vocals. You're compressing it really heavily, like a 12:1 ratio, and then you're mixing that in to the original. So you compress it really hard, and then you take a portion of that track and you mix it in. So you're not letting the listener listen to the whole compressed track. You're basically taking, let's say, 40% or 50%, depending on your taste or how squished you want it, and you're mixing that into the original.
Yeah.
So like, say I have a vocal track playing, and then I'll parallel compress it. So it's essentially duplicating that track, and this one's really squished, and this one's your normally compressed vocal, and then you're blending the two together,
Mhm.
based like a percentage kind of blend based on your taste.
Right.
And what that'll do is it'll really bring up the lows really high, and it'll really bring up the highs low enough to be super consistent. And that is like a game changer.
Wow.
That's something I never knew and I never did. So
That's
that
amazing.
really, so I think to recap all this, we've talked about a lot, but to recap this, go and fix your vocal volumes first, compress it really well with a normal compressor. So that's like your 3:1 ratio, your 2:1, and chain that well.
Mm-hmm.
And number 3 is parallel compression.
Yeah.
That's your this is like 4. I'm like, number 3. No, so number 3, parallel compression. So like those 3 things will just do your vocals so well.
And also the equalizer where you cut out the lows and the highs.
Yeah, I mean, like that's, I think equalizer when you're looking at vocals and guitars and anything like normal, especially in a room like mine where I don't have all this kind of, you know, like padding and all this stuff. So you're hearing,
we don't have any.
well, there's padding over there.
Oh yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like this curtains are good padders actually.
We have a curtain. Yeah.
But basically like my room is just like walls, and so there's probably like so much like reverb and like reflections that you're actually hearing. You can literally eliminate a lot of that stuff just by EQing well.
Damn.
Yeah.
So like really every producer should really look at their environment and also the vocal quality of their talent or whoever they are.
Yep.
And base the equalization and all that kind of stuff off that.
Just hear it.
Yeah, hear it.
Don't stick to a formula.
You don't stick to a formula.
Yep.
Got it. Cool. No, that was a super valuable amount of information, and I'm sure
Probably a lot of info actually.
No, that's good.
And I babble a bit too, so
that's good. I think let's hear that one more time.
So let's hear the whole vocal.
Let's hear the whole vocal. Like,
to be honest, I've probably messed around with the levels now, so but here we go. Whoops. So here's the vocal. So this is the soft one.
And can you bring back the instruments now?
You know what I'll do? I'll bring back one instrument at a time.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
I mean, you guys haven't heard the instrumentation yet, but just have a listen to this. So this is where you get... I'll bring the guitar in first, and then I'll bring the bass, then I'll bring the pads, then I'll bring the drums last.
Beautiful.
Pads now. Bass. Drums. And finally, FX. I love my FX.
Boom. That is such a gorgeous track.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Canaan, do you have any questions? Any last kind of questions that you wanted to ask?
I can't wait to listen to the full mix, man.
Boom.
That's awesome.
Thank you for that. That was highly educational, and I know that there's quite a lot of gems in there.
I think vocals, most important thing. So focus on vocals, get the vocals right, and you guys will do amazingly well, because I've literally, like, you can ask Lochana, like, this has gone from like, yeah, it's nice, to like, okay, this, I could hear this on the radio, I feel.
Yeah.
It's just like a personal thing. It's like, nah, not really.
I think so. I think I can definitely hear it. Because again, it satisfies that radio quality sound. It's got movement. It keeps my attention, and I remember it straight afterwards. Yeah. Right? Like,
sweet.
Same with you, Canaan. I'm pretty sure it's stuck in your head right now.
Yeah.
Canaan.
And even the other song that you showed me, was it the same guy?
Same one. Yeah, that's the one AJ and I co-wrote, and which will be coming out.
That's the other song?
That's the other song.
That's the other song.
And that's pretty dope as well.
Yeah, man. I thought that was radio ready.
Thanks, dude.
Boom.
Thanks, dude.
Where can people find you and follow your journey?
The AJ Sound. The AJ Sound is like the Instagram name that I've stuck with. I probably will never change that. But literally, I'm the AJ Sound, one word, everywhere. Like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. What else is there? Twitter.
Are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter, but I'm not very active, and like, I don't know, no one like checks my tweets. My twits.
Yeah,
twits.
No
one checks my tweets.
The twits is for a whole other type of
no one
industry.
checks my twits too, to be honest.
Give us some twit love, guys. Give us some twit love.
Yeah. But
someone go check out his twits.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's I posted it. I twittered something this morning.
Did you?
I twittered something.
I don't Twitter. I just don't see it. In my particular area, it doesn't really serve me as much.
I mean, social media is an interesting one, because every social media platform is good for a certain thing.
Yeah.
And I think I just really drill down on Instagram well, but everything else is kind of like, actually YouTube's doing really well. YouTube's done really well.
Yeah,
for
your
me.
last video's got 25,000 views right now,
which is really good, because I think a lot of that comes from like the work with Shirley in the past. I think one of those videos hit like 12 million views. So it's YouTube's always been good. But yeah, Instagram's not bad. It's like pretty active, but everything else is like semi-dead. Which it would be really nice if you guys help me out there.
Yeah, so when this track releases, which will be, we can't announce the date yet.
I can't announce the exact date, but let's just say end of Feb, very close to March.
Yeah, follow the AJ Sound at Instagram and Twits as well.
Twits.
So that you can look out for this track. And shout outs to Taranum and Jordan for playing a huge part in this. Jordan, amazing producer.
And actually, how long do we have? Like, I want to show you what Jordan contributed to this track. Like,
let's listen to the last little bit that Jordan let's listen to the bit that Jordan contributed. Yeah.
So I had the whole track done, right?
Yeah.
And like he listens to it and he goes, "Oh, it's missing something." So he comes over. So the whole track's like, just imagine the whole track playing. It's just right. It's all playing, right? And Jordan goes, "Oh, let me check out those pads." And those pads are beautiful. They've got like this Coldplay vibe. Like, I just want you guys to hear this.
That's got a very magical quality to it.
Wow.
Yeah. That's beautiful. It's
How
like
nice
lo-fi
is that?
hip-hop.
That's so
vibes.
beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of mirroring what you were singing, like that auto-tune?
Yeah, it's like the
synth?
ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
so
beautiful, man.
yeah, so
Good
that's
spot,
what
Canaan.
that is. Yeah.
Canaan on the track.
Keenan on the track. And so basically what happens is throughout the track, these pads go left and right like super aggressively. So like just hear this part. Left. Left, left. Left, right. Right. Like they're very sporadically like moving left and right just to add a lot of movement. In the final chorus they're going all out, so both sides stereo image. So full on. So that's 2 layers. So that's this pad, which is side chained to the kick drum. So side chaining means it ducks out every time the kick hits. This will the whole volume will drop. A lot of like pro producers do it even better now, where they frequency side chain. So
Right.
only certain frequencies drop.
Wow.
I haven't got to that level yet, but I'm aware it happens. And then it's got this component, which is the bell, which is really nice. That's the Coldplay bell. But in the final chorus, I got both sides playing. So Jordan listens to this track for like 4 hours straight on loop, okay? So he's heard it like 100 times now.
Yeah.
And he goes, "It's missing something. I can't figure out what." This is what he comes out with, okay? So this is what the track was missing, according to him. So literally this, okay? Literally that.
It's real pretty though.
It's and you know what? I'll be honest with you guys. It's lifted the freaking track, like
Yeah.
fucking track. I can swear on this, right?
Oh, you can swear on this.
Great.
Yeah.
It's lifted the fucking track, and it took him 4 hours to come up with that. But I'm so proud of him, because who would have spotted that? Who would have spotted that? So literally, okay, this is the pads without what Jordan added to it. It's literally like this. Oh, that's the track. That's not the pads.
It's amazing what a little detail.
So this is without Jordan, okay? And this is with Jordan.
It makes a huge difference
It
to
makes a
me.
huge difference. It makes a huge difference. And I'm like, whoa, okay. That's genius.
Yeah.
That's what I call a genius.
That's beautiful. Because for me, in pop music,
Yeah.
there's catchiness and then there's enjoyability.
Yeah.
A song can be catchy but annoying as hell.
Annoying as hell.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like things like this add that sweetness that makes it actually pleasurable
Absolutely.
and not just like memorable. Not saying your original song wasn't good and pleasurable,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
this adds
Absolutely.
that sweet tooth to it.
It adds that extra little oomph
Yeah.
that it needs. Yeah.
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 Love it. Well, thank you so much, AJ, for your time, and thanks for guiding us through your vocal stack.
Thank you so much.
The
I mean, we were planning to actually get through the whole track.
No.
But we clearly, I kind of told Lochana yesterday, I'm like, it's going to probably take like 3 or 4 hours, like,
Yeah.
if we're honest.
Hey, and if you guys want to hear the rest of how AJ produced the rest of his track, let us know in the comments. We will do another round, absolutely.
100%.
Because, you know, that's
We
what
can do
this-
another track as well. Like, I've got a lot that I'm kind of ready to just start sharing. So
Yeah, maybe we can do like another component of your next track.
Yeah,
Right? Because
absolutely.
we've covered the vocals. Now we can talk about instrumentation.
Or
we
the
can talk
bass,
about the
or like the drums.
Drums,
Yeah.
yeah, drums.
Yeah.
drums. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about how you thought about the drums. So, yeah. So I mean, the purpose of this is really just to geek out over the track,
Yep.
so that budding producers can learn how to make radio ready hits.
100%.
100%.
And you can do anything in a bedroom nowadays. Like, you don't need to be in a big studio with like 20 people looking at you. Like, you can literally do it in your bedroom. This whole track has been made in my bedroom pretty much by myself. So with Jordan here and there to help. So literally, it's been great.
Boom. Well, that's it for this first episode of 808 101.
Are we sticking with that name?
I don't know. Maybe. If you have a better name,
101.
808 101.
Boom, boom. You gotta have like, you know what? This could be your intro. This could be your
Yeah.
intro, right?
Yeah.
This is the bass to this track. Like, I'm just like plugging real hard.
Yeah.
808 101.
808 101.
This is 808 101 with Lochana on the track and Canaan on Switch TV. Dude, that's dope. Why don't you send that to me?
Just like an 808 playing in the background.
I'm like, 808, no shit.
We didn't even talk about the 808. Like,
No, we didn't.
808
No.
101.
808 101.
We could spend a whole hour talking about 808s.
I know.
Right?
We can.
And
and
I
may-
suck at 808s. Like, I'm just so bad at 808s.
We will have an episode dedicated to 808s from an actual 808 expert.
Yep. And I'll watch that because I need to learn this crap. Like, it's
Dope.
just,
Oh, man.
oh man.
Thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Lochana, Canaan on the track, AJ Sound at AJ Sound on the Instagrams. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you sign us out?
man.
Play us out. That's the one. That's the word I
Let
was
me
looking
play
for.
you guys out. Let
Boom.
me play you guys out. And you know what? I'll give you guys a bit of a preview of like half the Nah.
Oh.
Should we do the intro? Should we do the intro
Let's
instead
do
of the final
intro.
chorus?
Yeah, and then we'll fade out.
And please bear in mind, like, I've probably messed with these levels, so
That's
that's
fine.
probably not going to
That's
sound
fine.
right. But okay,
Play us out. Take us out.
here we go.
Out of my head, I know you don't wanna leave me alone.
Oh.
You know I can get you out of my head, but I don't wanna love you anymore. You know I can get you out of my head. I know you don't wanna leave me alone. You know I can get you out of my head, but I don't wanna love you anymore. I wake
That's it.
Boom.